That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at probably the single most important component keeping your V8 BMW from self-destruction. Let's go. If you haven't guessed it already, we are talking about the infamous BMW timing chain tensioner. Now, this is not a problem exclusive to V8s, but especially in the M60 and the later M62 that came after this one, this is an infamous problem because you've got chains running along the front of the engine, and you've got plastic guides that the chain is rubbing and running along. And this chain tensioner is supposed to push along the plastic guide and keep a nice firm tension between the chain and the guide. Now, infrequent oil changes or using crappy oil will basically render this thing useless. And what ends up happening is the chain starts slapping around and hitting the guides worse than an angry pimp on a Saturday night. And it ends up breaking those timing chain guides, and that is the infamous plastic in the oil pan that you get on M60, M62, and a whole bunch of other engines from BMW, including inline sixes. So we're going to be replacing this today, and I'm going to show you where you can do that. There's a little bit of tapping noise on cold start, and I'm very curious to see if this solves some of that issue. Now the process for this is fairly straightforward. We're just going to take off the airbox and move this out of the way, and then we're going to be able to access that timing chain tensioner, which is kind of down here by the passenger side valve cover gasket. So the timing chain tensioner is this little Allen bolt right here. I believe it's a 19 millimeter. Now, believe it or not, I'm using a breaker bar because I just can't get in there with my 1/2-inch drive socket. So let's see if this will break it off. That it did easily. It's this AC condenser is really getting in the way. Aha, here we go. Before I get too far ahead of myself, grab a rag. You will get some oil spillage out of here. Right, so here's the new one and here's the old one that I just pulled out. And you can see I'm trying to push it in, but there's just so much oil pressure in here that it's not letting me. Part of the reason might be this thing is just too gunked up with oil, but let's see. Now this is operating smoothly, as it should, as is this one. Now, this is not nearly as bad as it can be, but remember, this is a $50 to $100 part, and you don't want to chance it on your timing chains, so I'm going to replace this anyway, just as a safety precaution. We're going to see how this thing runs. Now, before we put in the new one, you want to make sure that the old crush ring does come off. Mine was jammed on here, and you can see from the side, if you put a light over here and you look at it from the side, you'll see if there's the crush washer is still attached to the block or not. Mine was, so I took it off. Here is a fresh one. Slide that guy on there. We are good to go. And what I'll do is I'm going to kind of hold it from here, and with one hand push it up because it is spring tensioned. Push it up and rotate at the same time so that it catches nicely. I'm going to slide one finger from the left. You got to push up on it and rotate at the same time. Torque spec on this is 30 Newton meters. Done. But before I put the intake back, there is one piece of maintenance that I want to do, and it is the idle control valve. Now this valve basically has like a flapping mechanism here, and it can get jammed and a little bit gunked up. What it does is it doesn't respond very quickly, and then the idle can kind of jump up and down. Sometimes the idle will just kind of drop after the car starts, or for example, when you're driving and you slow down for a red light quickly, the revs will kind of jump up as the car slows down hard. So I'm going to have a look at this to see if cleaning this up makes any difference. I'm going to take this out, take out the sleeve, disconnect the connector. As you rotate it, this flap should be moving very freely on the inside. Clearly, it is not. Here's the before. All right, so we're going to spray some Carb Cleaner in here and dry this out. You hear that difference? This should definitely solve our rough idling problem. Look at that, that took, what, 5 seconds? Good, this is all looking spiffy, but before you get excited and crank it over, we gotta address something over here. It is extremely important that we build oil pressure. The reason why we want oil pressure in there is because we don't want that spring to be loose, flopping around, and letting the chain slap around like that proverbial pimp that we talked about a minute ago. So I have pulled the fuel pump. Now we're going to crank this over for about 10 to 20 seconds, let oil pressure build up inside, put this back, and try a cold start. Here we go, cold start. Oh yes, sweet as a peach. So there you have it, guys. 2 really simple ways of keeping your M60 or M62 V8 in tip-top shape. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time.